good to go.
Okay, so thanks everyone for attending. I'm Jordan Uterhagen. I recognize a few names from the Teams lobby here with clients we've done work with before. Today's presentation's on Microsoft 365 and the digital transformation that can be done with it. We've found over the last 18 months here with the pandemic hitting that there was just a catalyst of organizations moving their way into 365, both out of necessity for something like Teams, like we're using today, something more collaborative, like maybe a SharePoint, or just trying to get more technology deployed in your organization with maybe something like Outlook hosted in the cloud through 365. So today I'm going to cover a bit about the licensing side of things. We get asked all the time from organizations, like, what is all these like alphabet soup of licensing? We got A, E, G, F, there's all these different flavors, and then the numbers associated with them. I'm going to cover that. I'm going to go through some more of the information governance and records management side of that licensing side of things, because I find that there's a lot of organizations that have an E3 or a G3 or an E5 or a G5, and they're not using the functionality that they're already paying for. So you don't have to go out and obtain another budget to get some more value out of what you already have. So that makes both IT happy and the business units and executives happy that we're able to deploy something that you already own. So a bit about us. Who's Cadence? Who's this guy and his goofy brother that does the introductions? We're an organization that helps other organizations struggling with digital transformation. So we've done over 65 projects across North America. We have industry-leading partnerships. And we actually started this company after going through a very poor implementation. So we've been on your side if you're struggling with that. I've been there personally. It wasn't very much fun. The vendor wasn't very helpful, and I started Cadence shortly after that. A bit about our alliances. Of course, we're aligned with Microsoft. With Microsoft, we have three core things that we assist organizations with: SharePoint Online, of course, and on-prem, Microsoft Teams, and anything to do with Power Apps or Power Automate right now, which I'll cover later as well. Many of you know that we're in the SAP space as well. We do vendor invoice management. That's SAP's big accounts payable automation side of things. Seen a massive uptick in that in the last 18 months as well. We do capture for SAP, and then anything around success factors, document management side of things. Third alliance for us is OpenText. We do everything around information governance with their products, so extended ECM, intelligent capture, Salesforce integrations, contract management was a previous life I had in terms of managing content and contracts and deliverables, and then accounts payable again. And you'll see those themes across really any solution: AP, HR, contracts, governance around records and information. Those are all core pillars of what we do. To dive into the licensing side of things, we get asked these questions, as I mentioned before, on all the licensing types. So we have the A series, the E series, the F series, and the G series. So I thought I'd actually dissect all this, get it all recorded, and spin it out to the community so everybody can understand this a little more clearly, because it seems like it is still changing very frequently. So there's different organization types. There's the enterprise, there's government, and this is all in Microsoft's eyes of things. There's education and academic, and then there's frontline workers. So maybe you got construction folks or nursing and that aren't on a computer all day. So Microsoft's really tied each of these to a licensing letter and then a number associated with that letter. So for example, in the enterprise side of things, you'll have three levels: E1, E3, and E5. This is for non-governmental orgs, of course, not schools or academia, and not frontline workers. You may combine the enterprise licensing with the frontline worker license. I'll cover that in a second. But really, these are the three levels of the enterprise. I know the government, where we're from here in Alberta, recently procured E5 for the entire enterprise, so 30,000+ licenses. So they're moving that direction. The cost per month is listed there. That is per user. This is US dollars and list price. So negotiate as you see fit with your Microsoft rep or reseller. $8 for an E1, $20 for an E3, and $35 a month for an E5. Cadence here, we run E5 for all of our staff, and I'll cover a lot of the features and functions you get with that and why we chose to make that decision as a business as well. If you're in the government side of things, there's the G series. G1, G3, and G5. Very, very similar to the E series, but I'll cover that in a few slides on why that's different and why that may be necessary for specific government organizations, maybe not all government organizations, and it really comes down to residency of data. On the education side of things, there is a plethora of licensing types or product SKUs from Microsoft here. There's A1, A3, and A5, and they're also available for students or staff. Staff includes faculty, support staff, professors, teachers, anything like that, in both K-12 or higher education. So if you are in the education space and you're attending today, I saw a few on the attendee list. That is something to look into. It's very, very cost effective for both education and even for not-for-profits. If you're not-for-profit, there is a plethora of licensing discounts. We worked with one not-for-profit. They're paying under $5 a month for some really significant licensing. So you can really get a catalyst in your organization to go through and deploy technology and not pay a lot for it. So they're very lenient and generous from their licensing side with the not-for-profit and education space. On the frontline worker side of things, if you're an organization, let's say, that has a bunch of people in an office, but you have 5 times that amount of people out building a power line or building a facility, and they don't need to have the office application level that most of us desk office workers need. We need full Microsoft Word, not the web browser version. We need full Outlook, not a web browser version. And we need a lot more governance and information controls than maybe somebody out on the frontline worker side of things. There's the F series of licenses, so F1, 3, and 5. And on top of those, if you just need to combine one of those with some of the security and information governance and compliance add-ons, that can be done as well. So it's almost a la carte for those types of workers. So if I want all my workers out in the field to submit a timesheet, and I need that timesheet to be secure, or it needs to be a special Power App or something like that, that can be combined with one of the licenses from the E or G series. So you end up being able to kind of mix and match those and reduce your costs, as opposed to having everybody have an E5 license at $35 a month, or everybody have an E3 license at $20 a month. So it can really reduce those costs, and that's been the go-to market strategy for Microsoft in the 365 licensing side of things. One thing I'll say, when you start looking up 365 licensing, they mix and match the terminology. There's Microsoft 365 and there's Office 365. Microsoft 365 will include Windows licensing, Windows Defender, those desktop utilities. Office 365 licensing is what most of us still refer to: SharePoint, Teams, Power Apps, governance, all those other features and functions that come inside of the bundle. So there is still a distinction between Microsoft 365 and Office 365. So if you're having those discussions, you're not sure what's what, give me a call, reach out to Jared or even George here, and we can help you get through that. From the government side of things, there's the G series. And really what the G series is government plans, and they provide all the capabilities of 365 in a segmented cloud. So if you're a US organization that needs to meet compliance and security standards, we've met with some nuclear agencies and some of those reactor design agencies that have strict government compliance. They need to be in a segregated cloud or segmented cloud. So that's where the G series can start to take over. It's only for qualified government entities, and they do make sure it's kind of like those, upon approved credit, same kind of concept here. Upon approved government entity, you'll qualify for the G series and you'll be provisioned into a segmented cloud. For our Canadian clients that are worried about the Patriot Act and that data crossing the border, you can be provisioned a Canadian-only data center, and that can be possible through negotiations and discussions with Microsoft as well. So that's the difference between the G series and the E series. You can pretty much just look at the E series, and then if you need to be in a segregated cloud for security reasons or compliance reasons, go ahead and start to pursue that side of things. So going forward, the difference between E1, E3, and E5, or the G series on that, I'm going to go through about 4 slides on this and kind of cover that, because it's something that's quite, can get confusing because there's always another little thing you missed or something like that. So we'll kind of build our way into this. So every version comes with Office for the web. That's Microsoft Word Online, Microsoft PowerPoint Online, Outlook in the web browser, all those basic, non-desktop installed applications. So again, if you're a fully remote workforce, you want to do everything from an iPad or a tablet or a web browser, you can simply just grab any one of these licenses, even E1, and run your whole operation like that. I find there's a few drawbacks with that. Things like track changes, some of the table formatting, some of the fancy cover pages, we use it here. The Office for the web, specifically in Word, doesn't achieve all the functionality of the desktop. It's maybe 60 to 75% there. So buyer beware on that one. The two main caveats to both the E1 to E5 side of things is for Power Apps and Power Automate. So Power Apps and Power Automate is essentially Microsoft's new workflow piece and forms engine. And I have an example of this a bit later in a slide. So this is licensed even at a sub level from the E series. If you want to get into deploying an app or deploying a flow through Power Apps or Power Automate, it's based on the number of users consuming that app. It can be based on the portal that's consuming that app, and it can be based on page views. So there's a whole sub-world there that I won't dig into today. We may spin that off into a separate webinar because it's very cost effective. It's just not bundled up in here. It's more, even more a la carte to that standpoint. I wanted to put a few security features in here just for the IT folks in here. Mobile device management, multi-factor authentication with all the security stuff that's been going on in the world. That's a big one recently. And on-premise Active Directory sync for single sign-on. So all those are included in any series. If you're going to something like Azure Active Directory or you want to bump up into those, you do have to look at expanding those licensing into different areas. Into extended functionality, of course, SharePoint comes with each series, different plan levels. Plan levels essentially mean storage and features. The OneDrive for personal storage is tiered as well. So on E1, you get a terabyte. On E3, you get 5 terabytes plus. Now, it's kind of throttled after 5 terabytes. So that's why it's the plus there. You have to reach out to really extend that. Now, the one main differentiator I find between the E1 and the E3, and we see a lot of organizations on it, a minimum of E3, is the desktop applications. Your users and your business workers are used to Outlook on the desktop, traditional Word, traditional PowerPoint, traditional Excel, and they're used to that in a Windows desktop format. That comes with E3. It also comes with the ability to install 5 copies of that. They can use it on their personal workstation if they run multiple laptops or a desktop and a laptop. They can install it in that as well. Multilingual, so if you do have multiple languages in use in your organization and maybe you're drafting contracts because you're a global entity, you have to make sure that you want that multilingual user interface if you have those types of workers. Now here at Cadence, we provisioned E5, and we actually did this before the pandemic. And we provisioned that on the entire basis of the phone system and Power BI. Those are the two components that I found very, very valuable to the organization, where we could now go to one provider and stop going through and compensating for cell phones or grabbing another piece of VoIP software for the phone system. So we provisioned the phone system here through E5. We also provisioned audio conferencing through E5. So if, for example, we host a Teams meeting and the other participants are from Zoom and they're a Zoom client, and they don't use Teams very often, and they need to dial in with a landline number or an old cell phone number, they can do that through audio conferencing in E5. They don't actually have to go back and install Teams. Maybe they're not allowed with their administrator, but that all comes with the E5 side of licensing. It also comes with a phone agent. So when you phone Cadence, it'll have, press 1 for this, press 2 for sales, press 3 for anything else, and get directed to our support desk or something like that. So that traditional phone system agent is all automated as well through the phone system. So you get a lot of capabilities there, and there's a cost savings, and in my opinion, more of a system consolidation, that single throat to choke style thing for software. It's all in one. Teams rings right to my desk, so my laptop, and it also rings directly to my cell phone if I have the Teams cell phone app installed, and you can forward between. If I'm not online for Teams, it will call my cell phone provision number, not my Teams number. You're also given a landline number through the phone system. So you can buy, in our area code, it's 587 or 780 phone number from the public phone network and have that provision. So if somebody wants to call you traditionally, and you don't want to give out your personal cell phone number, they can call a number that directs directly to Teams. So no switchboard necessary. So that was a big value we found in going to E5. Power BI, I have a slide on this in a second as well. Power BI, if you're Been around in the industry a little while, and you remember Crystal Reports. Tableau is kind of the flavor of the day now. Power BI is Microsoft's business intelligence tool, and you get the desktop version of this. So we've used this internally to build out a number of different reports that integrate with our project system, integrate with our ticketing system, and the ability to roll that up into a dashboard and publish that for all of our workers here at Cadence. So Power BI is another major plus that comes in E5. By the way, we don't sell licenses. It's just an explanation of everything here. A few others as we get into information protection. If you're getting into information protection and information governance, you might as well just scratch E1 right off the list and start probably leaning towards the E5 side of things. You're given sensitivity labels from a manual side of things. E5, you're given automatic sensitivity labels. So that's saying, is there sensitive content inside of a document, social security number, driver's license number, something that you don't want to exit the organization. If you want to go into machine learning-based sensitivity labels, that's not in any of these packages. That is a separate product or separate license tied to a separate product line, but it is an offering from Microsoft. If you're into data loss protection, which I know a lot of you are, it's for emails, files, and team stats. That is enabled in both E3 and E5. So that's something like when someone in my organization goes through and deletes 100 files that's sitting in SharePoint, I get a notification that says, Jared just deleted 100 files. Would you like to review these files? Or Jared just attempted to send this file externally, and maybe it's a proposal, and that should not be sent externally, so it's blocked. So a lot of different data loss prevention mechanisms are built into the E3 and E5 licensing offering. Again, you get basic and advanced message encryption. So if you're firing messages through Teams and you want to have that all encrypted, that's done through E3 for basic and E5 for advanced. That's on the protection side of things. As we roll into the governance side of things, I know there's at least 5+ records managers on this call today. We get into the retention labels, the organization or location-based retention labels, and the automatic retention policies. And you can start to kind of see where E5 starts to take over from a value side of things when you get into governance and the protection side. So what that really meant for us here is if we're going to do anything retention-based and anything really automatic, we need to get up into E5. And if we already have E5, we can use a lot of this functionality. So we have a demo environment here where this is all fully functioning out of the box with 365. We don't need a third party in here to dispose of electronic records and put a review for disposition cycles in there. Machine learning, again, out of scope, different product line. Teams retention policies. Remember, you have files in Teams now that are shared. You have messages you may want to purge at a different retention or disposition cycle than anything else. And then records management in general. And I'll show you really what that means from a Microsoft side of things. That's into the dispositioning side of things. So there may be some questions on this. We'll jump into that post the presentation here, and I can answer those. So what does this stuff look like? I don't just want to sit here and talk check boxes and functionality from the licensing side of things, but what can you do with some of these things? So Power Apps, we had a problem put in front of us with one of our municipal clients where they wanted an outside forms portal for citizens to access things like emergency services, permits, community services, and utility forms. And they wanted full workflow capabilities for internal folks, but status tracking for all citizens. So with all citizens, they were able to basically, the concept was track this like an Amazon package. Your permit's been submitted. It's at step 3 of 6. We expect it to be completed, August 5th, 2021. So we built this all out in Power Apps, and essentially it was that whole forms and workflow piece that was built on top of the 365 tenant for this organization. So one of the things you're able to do, just if you already have 365 and an E3 or E5 capacity and you want to go and do some outside forms portal things, give me a shout. We can show you the capabilities. We do have some technical folks on the line as well today that can carry that conversation. If you're looking at Power BI, this is essentially your Power BI desktop view. You build your data sets in here, you connect to different systems, you go through and pull sales reports. This is a screen of some sales reports, and you're able to do visualizations and then actually publish this up to a SharePoint web part, or publish this up in our instance to a Power BI portal where we can go access multiple reports from within the organization, but still have that one author or business intelligence analyst to go through and build these kinds of reports. So Power BI desktop from a extra value out of the E5, G5 series has been a really big benefit to us personally, and I think it would be one to you if you're already using E5 and G5. Start looking at maybe sunsetting some of those old reporting tools or doing more visualizations with it. It's pretty quick to pick up. Moving into the compliance center side of things, E5 and G5 both have the information governance and protection, as I mentioned, and also records management. So I'll dig into these a little bit more on what that means from a Microsoft side of things, but you'll see in the top left here, you have compliance. That's a separate quote unquote app that you're in the web browser when you click on this, the extended ellipsis here, where you see all your apps. You'll see the compliance center, and there's also the security center. So those are areas where you can go and start to configure your e-discovery, your information governance areas, your data loss prevention rules, any kind of content searching if you're doing that kind of stuff, and specifically records management as well. What does that look like if you haven't seen this before and you're starting out in that 365 journey, or you're considering sunsetting a traditional system, maybe an ECM on-prem system that you're looking to sunset and move into this? You can look at data classification. So this is from one of our lab environments here. We've set up a whole domain with 365, and I've challenged the guys here to go through and build out real life scenarios that we've run into and put that into 365. So you can see that there's sensitive information here for tax identification numbers, ABA routing numbers, and everything that the system's automatically found in content that's sitting inside of our 365 storage areas. That can be email, that can be SharePoint, that can be OneDrive. Further to that, just to kind of show you, this is everything that's been discovered with our sample data and the sensitive information types. We have some tax identification numbers from different countries. We have the ABA routing number, and the location in this instance of where the Portugal numbers are is sitting in both OneDrive and SharePoint. So we may want to dig into that. If this is live, I can click on this arrow here, and it's going to show me the content with that, provided I have the rights. So lots of different analytics and intelligence where it's just automatically doing it. You do have to set it up initially and optionally train some of this, but it does get more and more accurate with that light machine learning side of things. From a records management side of things, what we're able to do now out of the box in 365, and they're constantly improving this, is set up our retention schedule, set up our disposition, our events that connect to that, and publish that all up to the 365 tenant, and then have it run automatically. So if you'd like a demo on this, you can reach out. But really what this is doing is we built the file plan. We've went through and built out the events here for the retention duration, the disposition type for auto delete, and this runs periodically. So we can choose to execute this at will or execute this upon an event being established. So case closure of a record or something else. So this is a way that we can actually go through and do this without needing to purchase a third-party piece of software or integrate this with maybe an ECM system that has that kind of integration. So lots of different options here and capabilities all within here. So a little deeper dive into that. You have the file plan, the label policies, the events, and the disposition all built into the actual 365 tenant, specifically on E5 and G5. So this is invaluable. If you've fortunately, at this point, being a procrastinating organization that hasn't done records management, governance, and compliance, this is a great place to start. You can start with a department, start with a portion of your file plan, get it all functioning up and running with the dispositions and events, and then proceed from there. It's one of the rare times that procrastination is probably going to pay off for you. Just covering this more, we can determine if things are records or not, and the retention duration. Of course, this is a demo environment, so we have days and years all configured, and the category of information as well. So this is all capabilities from the system that's really available at will, and then you need someone that knows a bit about records management and definitely the 365 stack to come in and assist you with this. So with that said, I'm going to transition this over to George because it's really time to start thinking about an M365 or an Office 365 strategy. So if there's any questions on this, just type them in the chat box. We'll answer them right after George's portion of the presentation. And I'll stop the screen sharing now and we'll transition over to George.
Thank you, Jordan. Jared, just doing a quick check, or can you hear me okay? And is the screen up all right?
Loud and clear, George. You're good to go.
Perfect. Well, Jordan, thank you for that presentation. And Jared, thanks for kicking this off. I'd like to talk about how do you get ready to really utilize the power of M365 through the establishment of a digital transformation strategy plan. A little bit about us. We've been in business since 1995, so we've seen a lot in the ECM space. As independent consultants, we don't sell or resell the technology. We help with the upfront planning, setting budgets, helping to find the correct vendor, all the things that need to be in place for you to be successful. Our areas of specialty include technology planning across RPA, digital workflow, ECM, AI, machine learning, all that great stuff. We also are very heavy into process improvement, and we incorporate that into all of our projects. We use TQM, reengineering, Lean Six Sigma. And we also do review and update your information governance policies, procedures, and schedules to help you with your records program before you set it up in M365. We've assisted over 300 organizations. Our clients range in size from 25 to 250,000 employees. We have been working with all kinds of ECM products